Leaders from the BRICS nations are gathering at a summit hosted by Russia. It's the first meeting of the alliance of emerging market nations since it expanded to include 4 new members: Egypt, Iran, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates. On the sidelines of the summit, Chinese leader Xi Jinping and Indian President Narendra Modi are set to hold their first bilateral meeting in 4 years after ending a long-standing border dispute. UN Chief Antonio Guterres is also present. He will sit down with Russian President Putin to discuss the war in Ukraine, a decision that has angered the Ukrainian government. Let's get some analysis now from DW's Russia analyst Konstantin Eggert. He joins us from Vilnius. Konstantin, President Putin met Indian and Chinese leaders yesterday, producing lots of friendly rhetoric. Putin obviously hopes all this will reflect well on him. Tell us, how important is this summit for Russia's president?
Well, indeed, lots of rhetoric, not a lot of substance, but this summit is about showing the world, and what is even more important, the Russian population, that Putin's Russia is not alone. As the Russian propagandists like to say, the world is with us. It's only the golden billion, meaning the West, that is against us. So in this respect, this is an important, if you wish, PR exercise for Putin. Also, of course, we know that India buys Russian oil at significant discount, but that helps Putin's war effort. We do know, for example, Xi Jinping's and Iran's position on Russia's war against Ukraine. In fact, they're helping Russia in different ways, but they do. So it is important also from a practical standpoint, and the fact that all these people gather there produces an image of Putin being a global statesman who unites his allies. So it is indeed important both practically and, if you wish, propagandistically.
Well, this summit is happening while Russia is still waging its war of aggression against Ukraine. We heard India's prime minister expressing his hope for peace in Ukraine. How is that war impacting the summit? Well,
I think Ukraine is something that would rather be left unsaid if you look at it from the or unmentioned rather. If you look at it from Putin's point of view, Modi's call is quite abstract, and if he wanted peace, he could have essentially stopped buying Russian oil. But India doesn't. India says it keeps neutrality. Recently, it's been more receptive to Western narratives, if you wish, to Western conversations about the war. But generally, it still pretends that it's neither there nor here. On the other hand, if you look at the situation, evidently, people that gather there, they have a lot of disagreements between themselves. As was mentioned, China and India just finalized an agreement for better control of the border, so there wouldn't be skirmishes there. These countries are basically living in a very tense situation for decades now. You have Ethiopia and Egypt that have lots of problems between themselves. You have United Arab Emirates and Iran, also quite a lot of issues. So, you know, it's not a summit of friends, let's put it like that.
Okay. And finally, just briefly, Konstantin, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is there too. He's participating in the summit. Ukraine is angry about his planned meeting with Putin. How significant is that meeting, Konstantin?
Well, personally, I think Ukraine is quite justified in being angry. This doesn't look very neutral from the point of view of Ukraine, and frankly speaking, from my personal point of view, for the UN Secretary General to go there. Frankly speaking, the UN's been sending very confused messages about Ukraine, and I think the Ukrainians and the West are justifiably irritated by this very sort of uncertain rhetoric.
Konstantin, thank you so much. That was our Russia analyst, Konstantin Eggert.
I'm joined now by DW's Charu Kartikeya in our studio in Delhi. Charu, good to see you. Now, India was one of the original members of BRICS. Tell us, what's its role in the group and some of the dynamics it shares with the others?
Well, yeah, thank you, Jared. As you rightly mentioned, India has been among the founders of the BRICS. It quite enjoyed its role in the grouping as among the leading voices of the global south. BRICS was seen to be floundering, at least before the Ukraine war. There wasn't much action happening. But after the Ukraine war started, BRICS has gained much more traction, and now we see that India also attaches a lot of importance to BRICS summits. The Prime Minister personally attends all these summits. Now this is a new BRICS. This is an expanded BRICS, and we know for sure that initially when talks were on for the expansion of BRICS, India was not quite comfortable with the idea of bringing so many new countries, but eventually India agreed. And now this expanded BRICS has, its mandate has also expanded. So now India is now a willing party to, of course, the expansion of the BRICS, but it's trying to make the best of it with this new BRICS.
Now, a new BRICS, an expanded BRICS, but I guess one of the countries that India's had a bit of a problem with is one of its original members, China, historic rivals. After decades of conflict over their territory along their border, they've reached an agreement at BRICS. What have they come up with?
Well, Jared, details are still sketchy on this, but what both the governments have announced, the first announcement came from the Indian government, from the Indian side, and that was that patrolling arrangement, consensus has been reached on patrolling arrangements on the line of actual control between both the countries. This was first made by the Indian Foreign Secretary, then confirmed by the Indian Foreign Minister, and yesterday at Kazan, the Indian Foreign Secretary once again mentioned a few details. The Chinese Foreign Ministry also yesterday confirmed it in a statement that was much more crisp than the Indian statement. So very few details. Now, what analysts here are asking is that the line of actual control, and especially in Ladakh, where a sort of an encounter took place between both the forces in 2020, which is known as the Galwan encounter. After that, there were multiple points of friction on along the entire LOC. So there are various sectors in which troops of both the countries have been engaged in front of each other. So while the officials from both countries are talking about disengagement, what analysts are asking is that actually in which sectors has the disengagement been completed, and in which sectors is the disengagement now going to be completed, and what is the sort of the timeline that we are looking at. So those details have not been provided by either of the sides, and probably the devil really lies in those details, Jared.
Absolutely. I guess we'll wait to find out more. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India is going to meet Chinese President Xi today for the first time in around 5 years. What's expected from that?
Well, that is really the big breakthrough in the entire spectrum of India-China relations. And in fact, many analysts believe that this announcement of disengagement on the LAC it was made to pave the way for this meeting between the two leaders at Kazan. The two leaders have not met at a bilateral forum since 2019. That was the last time when Prime Minister Modi had hosted President Xi Jinping here in India at a summit, and after which in 2020 the Galwan encounter took place. After that, ties have been frozen. The countries nearly reached brink of war with a massive deployment of troops along the LAC. So this is the first time in the last nearly 5 years that the two leaders will be holding a bilateral. So much is expected. Of course, a joint statement is also on the cards after the meeting. But yeah, this is really the breakthrough. It signifies a sort of a realignment in the diplomatic relationship. And this is something that not just Asian powers, but even the Western Bloc is watching with anticipation, Jared.
Right. Charu Karthikeyan from our studio in Delhi. Thanks a lot, Charu.